Welcome back, everybody. This is going to be the follow-up, the second day, the second video of doing our Chinese landscape painting. We're going to go and do the watercolor technique today, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my Sharpies. We don't need those anymore because I've got everything outlined the way it is. And one thing that's nice to it, I can always go back up and touch up some things later because it is permanent marker. But I went ahead and erased some of my pencil lines that I had. Now we're going to go ahead and get our watercolors out. Now, we've got a pan of watercolors, okay? They work out pretty good if or when you are done using them. One thing to keep in mind is this. When you take them out, okay, this does actually pop out. You can wash this off really good. You pop this back in. And I usually tell kids, leave them open so they dry out. Okay, so that's kind of one thing to kind of keep in mind about watercolors. Also, too, I'm going to grab my watercolor brush. They're typically a little bit shorter. They have more bristles at the top to hold the water. I'm also going to have some water, because the operative word in watercolor is water. And whenever you do painting, no matter what kind of painting it is, you always want some paper towel nearby. This is great in case you make a mistake. You can dab up any of that water or that paper, that colored paint, and get it out of there. Or it's great to go ahead and clean off your brush off. Okay, so you always want paper towel nearby too. So, first thing you want to do is this. It's called a wet on wet watercolor technique. We're going to use a wash of water, and then we're going to add some color. Now, I always tell people, don't just take the color directly from the pan. Mix them up a little bit. It's okay with watercolor to mix up some of these colors. The only thing that doesn't look good or probably won't look good is if you mixed them all up together, okay? But sometimes it's nice to kind of use a little blue-green together, a little bit of orange and red, even some purple-blue is really kind of cool to go ahead and put on here. So think about that too when you start doing these colors. So the first thing I want to do is this. I want to take a section of my mountains, okay? Now, you have to have patience because when you start doing this, if you do this section here, you have to wait until your two sections that touch it are dry. All right, because otherwise, if you start doing that, they are going to bleed together and you're just going to have one big mess. So the point of this is to actually do a section, let it dry, and then go back and do the sections around it. You want to keep that separation, okay? Don't blend them all together, please. You know, keep that separation. That's what you want to have. All right, so what I'm doing right now is I'm taking a little bit, notice I'm twisting my brush to get that paint out too. I want to make sure I saturate my brush with paint. All right, I'm adding a little bit of blue, a little bit of green together. And what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to dab it on. All right, I'm going to dab it on here. And if you look at it, look at that. Look how that water just takes that paint. All right, makes it move right up the mountains here. And sometimes I like to leave a little bit of the white showing. All right, you can go ahead and kind of touch up a little bit more up here if you want. All right, that's cool. All right. But I'm going to go ahead and leave a little bit of that white showing. That's perfectly fine. And I'm not going to overwork it. The biggest mistake kids make when they do this is they put the paint on and they just smear in everything, and you lose a lot of these, like I almost call it like a little bit of a tie-dye effect. You lose that. You don't want to. Leave it alone. Let it dry. It'll dry like this. It's pretty cool. Now, I can't paint these two sections until this one dries. So I got to have a little patience with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over, maybe do this little top section right here. So I'm going to go ahead once again, add in some water, just a wash of water. And I'm going to make it look like it's fog too, so I'm not going to put really any paint down here. We're going to go, ooh, look at that. Water just takes that paint and brings it down. In fact, I'm going to let the water do the painting for me. I'm going to let it pull it down a little bit. If I want to, I can sometimes go ahead and add a little bit, oopsies, a little bit more water down here. And it is, if you get too much paint on a certain area, just take your paper towel, just dab it up, okay? Just dab it up, you should be good to go. All right, we're going to leave it like that. That looks fantastic. Now I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to do these two. Actually, I'm going to do this section right here. All right, we're going to go into this one. And then once I'm done with this, I'm going to show you how you do one big section like the sky and what you can do for that. The only problem is I did paint this mountain, so I got to make sure that I don't get any water next to it. I got to be a little careful about that. Now, you can mix up your colors too. I'm using the blue and the green. You guys can go ahead. You can go ahead and use purples and blues. You can use the reds. You can use the yellows, and yellow-green would be kind of cool too if you want to do that. All right, I want to go actually add a little purple here too. Sometimes it's nice to kind of add that. Kind of darkens it up a little bit. Ooh, that is nice. All right, and once again, let the water do the painting for you, okay? You don't want to overdo it. All right, so I've got my three sections done. I got to wait for those to dry before I do the sections around them. I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit. I'm going to try to be careful. I'm going to try to do the sky while still coming close to almost touching the mountain, but not quite. So to do the sky, I want to go ahead and get a good amount of water on my brush, and I'm just going to go ahead and bring that water down over the top. I'm bring it really close to here without touching. Ooh, okay, that looks good. All right, bring it over this other mountain. Because wherever you put the water, you guys, that's where your paint's going to go. All right, what I'm going to do next, I'm going to take a little bit of blue, a little bit of purple. I'm going to start at the top, nice and dark, and we're going to slowly, oh, that's pretty too, slowly just kind of bring it down back and forth. Okay, bring it down. And what's going to happen is it's going to lighten up more and more, almost like you would see in the real sky, and you could be good to go. All right, and I'm just going to let it dry just like that. Okay, now for smaller areas, what we can do is we can actually go in here for like your trees and your pagodas. We can use Prismacolor because sometimes it's a little bit harder to go in here and use watercolor for that. So don't worry about that. Wait till it dries. We'll go back, maybe add a little Prismacolor. That'll be fine. But for right now, this is pretty much as I can do. I'm going to go ahead and let it dry. Come back the next day. We'll be ready to go. We'll be ready to go ahead and add some more color to it. Couple things to be careful about. When you go ahead and put this on the drying rack, you're going to put this on the drying rack. Make sure you don't lift it straight up, because otherwise the paint will just start dripping right down. All right, and also too, make sure you wash out your palettes if you need to, your paint palettes, and let this watercolor dry out. Okay, and just we'll clean everything up. Okay, if you want, you can also go ahead and kind of leave your brush with these, because we'll go ahead and we'll keep the sets together, and you can use it from day to day. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good luck. I can't wait to see what you create.